Welcome to the Wingmen Show. We're floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you badass jet pilots, rumble. Welcome to the Wingmen Show. My name is Commander Drew Brown. My wingman, the guy who watches my six. You always need a good friend near you. My wingman, Dr. Paul Thompson. What's up, brother Paul? How you doing today?
Good morning, Mr. Drew. Good to talk to you. Yes, a good wingman will watch your six, which is behind you. That's the clock code. Think of a clock, an old digital clock, if anybody knows what that is. Starts at 12, goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 6 is about halfway down. That's behind you. Someone's looking behind you because you can't see behind yourself. So we all need mutual support every now and then, or really all the time.
That's right. Somebody to watch your back. I'm going to start off with this quote. Everyone sees, but only a few know. My daddy came up with that quote, and that's a motivational quote that's so true to me. Everyone sees, but only a few know. All right, Dr. Paul, talking about sonic booms, because you and I have both been in a place where we've done sonic booms and we've heard sonic booms. Well, this week, they had a sonic boom over Washington, D.C. A Cessna Citation business jet took off from Tennessee, flew to Virginia, and then made a U-turn and came back. And the reason it made a U-turn and came back is because the pilot and the passengers were unconscious, it seems like. And they flew back over Washington, D.C. What happens is the military scrambled F-16s, and they were so far behind, they had to go supersonic to catch this bad boy. And they were smoking over the Capitol. But then you heard that big sonic boom. Once you pass the speed of sound, bam, you get that boom. Dr. Paul, this is the question I want to ask you. That was big news today. And what happened was these poor people, they were unconscious. I don't know if some hypoxia or what it was, but when they were unconscious, they ran out of gas. And luckily, they crashed in the woods in Virginia. My point is, what happens if they would have ran out of gas earlier and they would have started spiraling down towards the Capitol? What would the F-16s have done? But tell me what you think about this hypoxia and the crew or the pilot being passed out, Dr. Paul.
Yeah, I've been looking into it a little bit more. There's more information that's come out about it. It's still being deciphered. But yeah, that airplane is actually went past Virginia, but it's actually headed to New York. It's going to Long Island, Islip MacArthur Airport. So it left out of Tennessee, went up to New York, sort of turned around and headed back to a point of origin. I think that's probably the way the flight management system was programmed, or whatever he had. Maybe went on to heading hold or something after he got to destination, and it ended up cycling back to its origin. But the question is, when did they lose contact with it? So it's still a bit of a mystery because this all happens at a fairly high altitude. I think it was a total of 6 F-16 jets were scrambled. Only one actually went supersonic. I think he requested permission to do that. Typically, that's illegal over the United States, I guess, except if you're in a designated area, maybe out in Fallon or in the warning areas or out overseas or over in the ocean. I mean, but you could request it if you needed to. It's in case of a national emergency, they gave him permission, and he broke the sound barrier. Okay, which is interesting. But anyway, they got.
What would have happened though if that jet would have started coming down towards the Capitol? If it ran out of gas, there was nobody flying it. Would they have tried to shoot it down and the plane go everywhere in case there was a bomb on it?
That's a good question. It'd be actually a good scene for a movie. I could see where they could say, well, you're not going to hit your target. So it could either hit in one piece or blow it out of the sky, and you get 10,000 pieces raining down. Not a good choice. But they had like six airplanes, 6 F-16s from 3 different bases intercepted the thing. And they said the guy was slumped over. More likely, he probably had a physical problem. Might not have been decompression. If it was a rapid decompression, more likely the windows would have fogged over. And apparently they weren't. They were just looking.
But how come the passengers were passed out also?
I think speculate. They speculate. I think they said the shades were drawn. So I'm not sure about the passenger stuff. I
don't know. If I was a passenger in there, I'd have ran up to the cockpit, and when those jets were flying formation on me, I'd have been screaming and yelling at them. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Well, who it's still a mystery. It's a tragedy, but yeah, they ran out of gas and it spiraled down and crashed in an area nearby. I had a little experience. I can tell you this. I guess I can throw this in here. One time I was on a charter leaving from Dover Air Force Base. Dover Air Force Base doing a charter overseas, military charter. Took off out of there. That's not too far from the DC area. Took off, made a left turn, going over the ocean. Had a landing gear problem. Low altitude landing gear problem. Needed to sort it out. And in sorting it out, I didn't want to go too far out. I just asked for vectors just to stay in the area. And this was a very unusual thing. And I could hear the controllers asking state intentions. And I told them exactly what was going on. And we were running through the checklist. And it was a fairly easy checklist. But about every 3 seconds, they would ask my intentions to the point where I couldn't even go from like step 1 to step 2 to step. You're interrupting me, and I had to check other things. And the concern was obvious that I was so close to the DC area. What do we basically, they were in their voice, they were saying, what do we have going on here? Even though they were asking, I was answering. And I said, finally, I said, I need about 30 seconds, just 30 seconds.
What kind of plane were you in?
It was an MD-11. MD-11.
So you're telling me you almost got blown out of the sky over Washington, D.C.?
Well, no, but if I had answered the wrong way, that possibility would have been more likely. So they'd have to react pretty quickly because I went about 40 miles away. It just happens at like 1,000 feet. So anyway, it felt like about an hour. It was all beginning from the start to finish. It might have been 3 minutes, but to them it was like 3 years. This is some time ago.
Hey, Dr. Paul, you see those bad space shuttle behind us?
Yes.
That's our jets for today. And I'll just tell you what, they are some beautiful, powerful rockets. We like the space shuttle. And, we tried to show you guys out there who are watching us on YouTube. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, please write us a review. If you guys are watching us on YouTube, check out these badass jets that we show every week. And thank you so much, all our frequent flyer listeners. That means people who listen to us every week. We really appreciate what you're doing, supporting us. Thanks for hitting us up on Instagram. We do appreciate it. We also have a website, which is called WingmenShow.com. You can get all of our shows on WingmenShow.com, and that's WingmenShow.com. But what we also have is a flow line. In other words, you can ask Dr. Paul and I some questions about life, about anything, and we will try to answer them on the show. Matter of fact, we do have a flow line question later in the show. But I do want to tease our wingmen because we were talking about the sky, and this week's wingman is a doctor in the sky, which is incredible. A doctor in the sky, and Dr. Paul about our wingmen. But what I wanted to start off is Apple, my favorite company, just came out with something that is called the New Vision Pro, which are goggles. Meta already has those virtual reality goggles. So Apple has the new goggles, but Dr. Paul, there are no controllers. You don't touch anything. You control everything with your eyes and with just your hands, just in the air. It's almost incredible. It's a new way of virtual reality. And it's almost like all the stuff you've been seeing on television all the time, all that science fiction is actually coming true. Now, I love Apple. I made a lot of money on Apple because I bought stock a long, long time ago. Matter of fact, when I first joined the Navy. But the important thing is Apple's very pricey. And you know what the price of this new equipment is? Because it's like the new iPhone. They have all these new things that came out with. This is the new virtual reality headset. What do you think that would cost, Dr. Paul?
Oh, probably $850.
$3,500. And there are people in this country who are going to be lined up to get it. So I asked my son, that's why you have to raise good children, so they're very smart. And then later on in life, you ask them questions and you do what they say. So I said, Drew, what do you think about this? I asked my son, Drew, what do you think about this virtual reality, the new Apple product? And he said, Dad, I'm going to wait for VP3. In other words, let them go through 2 or 3 successions of this virtual reality, and I'll get it when it's all fixed up and all the bugs are out of it. Huh, Paul?
Wow, that's me. $3,500. My first car didn't cost that. It really didn't.
Well, now you can put these headsets on and imagine you're in a car. You can imagine you're going somewhere.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know if this would be good for society. I guess it's entertainment. I've worn goggles like I think one time overseas, and playing a game where you're killing aliens or something, busting through the castle. It was okay. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I don't know. Hopefully this doesn't hurt society or hurt people that has everybody, hallucinating at the same time, walking around the street, and we're already talking to ourselves because of the communication. We're arguing and yelling in the aisles and what?
Well, these new Vision Pro, Doc, you can actually see through them. So they have open end lenses where you can actually look outside. So you won't be bumped. It's not the ones that are closed. These actually have open, and you do something with your eyes, and then it shuts it.
Oh, okay. Well, when you get your set, let me know, and I'll see what you say.
I'll let you come. Well, we're waiting on VP3. That's what Little Drew says. What he says, I do, and that's about that simple. So, Dr. Paul, you and I come from the greatest city in the world, New York City. And the greatest city in the world, this is a story that's blowing my freaking mind. There was a lawyer in New York City who had a case against an airline. And what he did is he used an AI chat box to write his briefs. So, they dig up the history of other laws that are related to the law that you're trying to write about, and they write briefs. And then they cite different cases, throughout history to back up and support your brief. Is that correct, Dr. Paul?
Yes.
Well, this guy had a perfect brief. The judge was about to rule on it because just the brief is just so perfect. It had 6, 7 cases in it. Guess what, Dr. Paul? The AI chat box made it all up. There were no cases. They faked the cases. So it was Martinez versus Delta. There is no Martinez versus Delta. They just made up these cases, 6 of them. But what really blows my mind, and I can't wait to hear what you got to say about this. What blows my mind is the judge, because he got in trouble, the lawyer. And the judge said, well, didn't you verify this? And he said, yes, I did. He said, how'd you verify it? The lawyer said, I asked the chat box if he was telling the truth. Take it, Dr. Paul, take it.
I'm not sure, but in the Terminator, one of the Terminator movies, it was 1 or 2, Terminator says, maybe that little boy asked, are you telling me the truth? And I think the Terminator says, I cannot lie. Well, apparently this Terminator was lying. He just made up a story. So I think there's a cautionary tale here. If you're going to use one of these popular AI services, and it's supposed to be original content is original content, you need to make it original, because there are ways to check to see if something is AI generated too. I have some.
Oh yeah, they're going to have it. They have a new system that if you write a brief on an AI, it can pick it up right away. So, because a lot of kids, if I was school and they had AI and they wanted you to write a paper, I'd say 8 words and the chat box would write the paper.
Yeah. The chat box do the 25, 30 page term paper while you're about to go to sleep in 5 minutes. You just hit print. Yeah, that's and this is a new technology that's evolving. It'll change. But yeah, he got caught big time. Apparently, he's not a new lawyer. I think he'd been in the business for like 30 years or so. Very prominent. Probably short on time, and he hit send or enter, and they spit out some bad stuff.
Yes, and he's going to have to pay for it because he got fined and he got in trouble. Dr. Paul, gas prices are going up again, and do you know why? Because the Saudis want it to. Do you realize that they're going to stop production to raise gas prices so they can make more money? And last show, we just told you that they are going to pay a soccer player named Kareem Benzema, $400 million for 2 years, a 2-year contract. Then Now I just found out that they merged with Live Golf. The PGA and Live Golf, backed by the Saudis, have merged. And the only reason they merged is because there were so many lawsuits between them. It would have cost them billions, they said, to find a legal answer to their problems. So they merged. The Saudis bought PGA, basically, is what's happening. So my question to you, Dr. Paul, is now we're in the business world, it's always money versus money. Now we're doing money versus ego, and the ego has unlimited money. And if they don't have enough, they raise prices on gas, and then all of us have to pay for their extra. It's very hard to compete with a company that is just doing it for ego.
Yeah, if you have an unlimited budget, I guess you can outspend the other person or spend them into oblivion. Yeah, $200 million a year for soccer players, pretty good. Although with the other things that are going on in Saudi Arabia, that's just a drop in the bucket from what I understand. I've only been there once. It was just for a couple hours. Yeah, Live Golf. I know they hated it when it started, but like I said, they had so much backing, so much power behind it that now they got to deal with them. In other words, if you can't beat them, join them. It seems like they've joined up.
So, Dr. Paul, great topic here. You know, we've been in the airline industry most of our lives. And because when you're a commercial pilot, sometimes you deadhead to places. In other words, you pick up your trip in another country, another city. And what happens is you take commercial airlines. So right now, I'm going to give you the top airlines in the world that was just voted for. And believe it or not, I'm sorry to say, the first time an American airline is in there, number 15, Delta. But the top ones are Air New Zealand. I'll read them to you. Air New Zealand, Qatar Airways, Etihad Airways, Korean Air, Singapore Air. Number 8 is Qantas. Number 7, Virgin Atlantic. Number 8, Eva Air. Number 9, Cathay Pacific Airways. And number 10, Emirates. And the most luxurious plane I've ever been on is first class in Emirates. And it's damn near a hotel room for yourself. When they ask you what you want to eat, I mean, when you say what's on the menu, they said anything you want. Tell us about some of the experiences you've had with these top airlines. And it's a shame that Delta's number 15. Let me just finish this. JetBlue is number 18. And the last on the top 25 is United Airlines, number 25. Okay. That is amazing. But I do notice that foreign airlines, they really are a lot better, and they do care about your service. When we flew to China, the Asian airlines, for some reason, truly do care about everything the passenger wants. And there was one time I was in first class, I couldn't pick up my head before 2 flight attendants came right to me. Can I help you? Can I help you? It was almost unnerving. Dr. Paul, how about your luxury airline experiences?
Yeah, I've flown most of the airlines you mentioned. I've flown. Probably half of them, I guess, at one point. Yeah, I enjoyed it also. I guess my top experiences were on. Cathay was great. Singapore was great. Emirates was very much great. That was the one where you could, like you said, you had like your own apartment. It was like a little apartment. You could close it off. You hit everything. I used to take pictures of myself sitting in the chair. I think everybody does. You know, it's an unusual way of flying. Whatever you eat. The only thing I never did, I think in the A380 they had a shower. You could take a shower on the airplane. Yeah. I never did that. I was happy where I was. Food was great. You know, whatever you want, and they're always coming by, and you could always say like, you know, hey, I don't want anything else. But if there were not that many people, sometimes people come by every like 5 minutes. Can I get you anything? Can I get you anything? No, it's okay. We got another 10 hours of flying here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Dr. Paul, it's hard to go in the back to coach once you've been in first class. It's real. You almost look like, oh, look at the cattle back there. I'm glad.
Yeah. It's like the cattle car. That's basically what it is after you've experienced that, because it can be pretty grimy in some of these airplanes. So I appreciated that. I enjoyed the treatment. And one thing, even on Emirates, I guess it's not a plug for them, but I did it a couple of times where if you had a certain level of accommodation, they would do your transportation to and from the airport.
Yes, no
I
doubt. They
did,
pick
I
you
did,
up at
I
the
did, I did
hotel.
that like about 2 or 3 times. It was cool just to try it. And it was really nice. I had my own car, take me up, drop me off at a certain place, pick me up from a hotel that was different than the layover hotel. And they delivered me there. That was pretty impressive.
Yep, it's not bad. And you know what that brings us to? It's time for the PSA from the 11 Facts in Life. Number 10, treat others as you want to be treated. Respect and kindness. Fact number 10, treat others as you want to be treated. Respect and kindness. And I'll say it again, and I won't ever stop saying it. The answer to world peace is being nice to each other, not agreeing, not believing that each other's right or wrong, but just being nice, decent, fair, kind, and the world would be free again.
Right. Right. Yeah, there's like an overemphasis on everybody being hard and tough, hard and tough, hard and tough, hard and tough. Yeah, that has its place, but you can't just stay, hard and tough and angry and mean and vicious 24/7. What does that
It's a
lead?
horrible way to live, Doc.
That's we're not playing football or in Mortal Kombat every second of the day. That's not the way you should treat children. That's not the way children should treat each other. And we see a lot of that, and it's unnecessary and it's wrong.
I think a lot of people act hard because they're scared to be vulnerable. And
True.
a lot of people might be scared to get hurt. So they figure if they don't put their feelings and their emotions out there, they can't get hurt. But that's not the way to live at all.
That's true.
What about this country, Sweden? I got a couple things for Sweden. Number one, they're going to have a road for electric vehicles that you just drive on the road and it'll charge up your electric vehicle, which is going to eliminate gas stations. And you won't have to plug in anymore, like stop and plug in for your battery. You just drive along this road, almost like that third rail in the New York subway system that has electricity on it. Right. Some kind of way, you're going to drive along this highway. They'll charge you for whatever you take, and you'll be able to charge up your battery. But the other thing that Sweden is doing, it's working towards being a smoke-free country. In other words, it'll be illegal to smoke in Sweden. And that to me is incredible. So I read the story, I kept reading, and all of a sudden, I read about this substitute that only Sweden has because it's banned in every other European country. In the EU, it is banned, and it's called snus. SNUS, and it's a tobacco or nicotine derivative that is very powerful. And obviously, if you have all that nicotine in your bloodstream, you don't want to smoke. But this stuff is dangerous too. But I think that it's incredible. We're going, because we have traveled the world, Asia and Europe, they smoke like crazy. They make Americans look smokeless, actually. I mean, Asians, they just smoke. But how about a country that you won't be allowed to smoke?
Yeah, I think they said Sweden has the lowest smoking consumption in I guess in Europe of European countries. It's like 5%. Strangely enough, there's a country that has less than that. It's actually Turkmenistan. It's in Central Asia. Turkmenistan has actually a lower percentage of smoking than Sweden. And I think women don't smoke there at all.
That's right. You're not allowed to smoke there. Women are not allowed to smoke.
Okay, well, that would explain it. But that would be interesting. Never been to Sweden. I think they probably had a very big national health campaign about the dangers of smoking, and it just took hold there.
Yes, it did.
Places like Paris. I remember Paris used to be, there was smoke everywhere. And then over the years, that decreased. I think they took it out of the restaurants. And if with me, somebody like me, I'm actually allergic to smoke. Very allergic to smoke. So
I'll tell you, this next, what I'm going to tell you now, we have that frequent flow line, wingmenshow.com. You write us and we'll answer you. And this kid from Detroit, he's a young man from Detroit, 19-year-old from Detroit. He wants to quit smoking and drinking. He's ruining his life. Well, this is my suggestion. The drinking part, that's an addiction also, but they have groups and they have organizations that can help you with that. You don't have to do that alone. But the smoking, to me, I used to smoke, and it was one of the hardest things that I ever did was quit smoking. But I do have a way that you can quit. So this is the way I did it. And, I know a guaranteed 100% I did it. So I know that it worked for me. The first thing is you have to want to stop. You have to get in that mindset you want to stop. The second thing is that nicotine is a real, true physical addiction. So instead of going cold turkey and going crazy, they have Nicorette, they have a patch, they have gum, they have all these little nicotine substitutes that will take the physical craving away. So what I used to do is, in the beginning, I wore a patch and chewed gum. And I would take the gum every time I wanted a cigarette. I would take that Nicorette gum. I would wrap it in a piece of gum that I really liked, and I would chew it. And within 5 minutes, that crazy craving would go away. And I did it long enough to where I started taking off the patches and just doing the gum. And the last time I chewed the gum is when I kind of got nauseous from the nicotine. And that was it. It took a little while, but it's one of the best things I ever did. You have some advice for quitting smoking and drinking, Dr. Paul?
Yeah, I've never smoked, and I think I had one hard alcohol drink once in my life, and I had a very bad experience. I had a bad experience, and I said, and I never did it again. I was in my early 20s. I said, nope, not for me. Yeah, again, I was allergic to smoke from the time I was little till like right now. It's just there. I have no other allergies, but I would say for the young man, the first thing I would do, in addition to what Commander Drew is saying, get into some kind of a physical fitness program. I don't know where you are in your physical fitness. If you're 19, you're still a teenager technically, but you're not going to be young forever. Get into some kind of a regular exercise program that's going to be a little bit demanding and require a certain amount of discipline to do consistently. That'll help you in addition to, gums and patches and other things you can do for yourself. This gets back to my thing, keep moving and do it vigorously to a point where you may not, need those artificial things to make yourself feel good or to relax you. That's what I find. Exercise relaxes me a lot. Even if it's very, very tense afterwards, I'm typically totally relaxed.
The problem is, Dr. Paul, and thank God, first of all, you heard me laugh when you said you only had one drink. Because you're a Navy pilot, Navy pilots drink more than anybody I've ever seen in my life, and I was one of them. So I drank enough for both of us. So don't worry about that.
Okay,
don't drink anymore, but I did when I was in the Navy.
Okay.
But what I was going to say about that physical exercise, and that's your favorite thing, talking about moving. Did you know that music actually improves mental health as much as exercise? And this is just an offshoot, but for your memory, there's things called flavonols. So if you drink green tea, berries, apple, and cocoa, not chocolate, but cocoa, that should help your memory. But in addiction, Dr. Paul, the person doesn't feel good after a while. He just feels normal. Like heroin addicts, after a while, they're not getting high as much as they're getting straight. And if you could, if you hear in the movies about heroin addicts or any kind of addiction, they just use to get back to the normal, which is a horrible thing. And I'm telling you, it can be done. The one thing I want everybody out there to know is that there's help out there. If you really want to change your life, there is help. And because you have that iPhone and you have your computers, there is so much information out there. But don't be scared to ask for help. We said it last week. Asking for help means power. And when you use that help, it is very powerful. Dr. Paul, I told you about a doctor in the sky. You have a wingman for us, or a couple of wingmen for us. You want to tell us about our wonderful wingmen this week?
Yeah, this week we have a pair of wingmen, a wonderful pair. And this is a good story. See, we're talking about good stuff. There are good people in the world and good things happen despite what you see on the news and in the stories that lead. But today we're talking about two wingmen, Emily Rains and Daniel Shiflett. Emily Rains and Daniel Shiflett were a couple on vacation in the Bahamas, headed home to Baltimore, Maryland. Well, I guess they went from the Bahamas to Fort Lauderdale, and they were taking the Southwest flight from Fort Lauderdale to Baltimore. Halfway on that 3-hour flight from Fort Lauderdale to Baltimore, announcement came over the public address system saying, is there anyone on board that has medical experience? And both of them, both Emily and Daniel, are nurses. Daniel was a nurse. He was doing something now, but they are basically licensed nurses. And they came up to the front and they see the flight attendant. The flight attendant's kind of panicky. And there's a man that's slumped over in his seat and knows something's wrong with him. So long story short, say he wasn't breathing and they needed to get his heart going. Basically, I thought he had a heart attack. So they're working on him. They were laying him down in the center aisle, not much space. And it didn't look good, but they kept working and working and working.
CPR, they were pumping his chest.
They were pumping his chest and there was no response. And they were thinking about his airway being blocked. And there's something on the airplane called an oropharyngeal airway, which is something that can open up a person's airway to help them breathe, to help get their heart started. Well, apparently this works. And they make an emergency landing. The plane makes an emergency landing, I think, in Raleigh, North Carolina. And the man survives. And afterwards, both of them, both Emily and Daniel, said they didn't think he was going to make it. Typically in that situation, that the circumstances they ran into, the results weren't good. But the man did survive. He made it home. They never released his name.
Yes, no, his name was Michael.
Oh, you guys know? Okay,
his name is Michael. And his wife called these two wonderful wingmen and thanked them for saving her husband's life.
Yeah,
so
that's what I heard.
Is alive because of these two wingmen.
Yeah, he was alive. Yeah, he didn't have a heart attack, but he had some event that stopped him from breathing and almost ended his life. And the interesting thing about it was that both Emily and Daniel, they were actually trying to get a different flight because they had a long time between the time they got from the Bahamas to Fort Lauderdale. They were trying to get on an earlier flight and they couldn't get on one. So they had to stay there that whole time. And they were, I guess, bound and destined to be on that particular flight.
Yes, you believe me, there's something big out there in the world. I call him God or Shorty. And trust me, he's around us all the time. Dr. Paul, thank you again for this great show. And I got to tell you, Dr. Paul and all our listeners out there, whatever is meaningful to you, whatever is beautiful to you, and whatever makes you happy, may you have that today and forever. And Dr. Paul, I pray for peace.
I pray for peace, and I'm appreciative of all of our listeners and subscribers who listen, like, and share the message. Do something good for someone. And if you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like. It helps us with the algorithm, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you once again, Dr. Paul Thompson, my friend. Thank you for your love, your time, and that's something that we won't ever get back. I want to thank all the listeners, too. Thank you so much for doing the show, Dr. Paul. We're jamming.
Well, thank you, Mr. Drew, for inviting me on. Always good to talk to you. And ladies and gentlemen, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast or any of the podcasts. If you're looking at YouTube, they say smash the like button. Don't smash it. Just press it gently and refer to use as a link to all your friends. You can also look at us on our website, wingmenshow.com, WINGMEN show, SHOW.com, altogether, wingmenshow.com. And we hope to see you in the future. Thanks again, Mr. Drew.
Oh, you're welcome. And we're still floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you badass jet pilots, rumble. May there be peace on earth, and goodwill towards all men and women.